The playoffs are officially underway, and already we have so many different things to talk about after just a few games in each series. We've seen down-to-the-wire finishes, clutch moments, and big-time performances, but on the flip side, there have also been quite a few big-name stars stinking up the joint, disappointing everybody. Media outlet Bleacher Report just published an article where they proposed 4 hypothetical trades that they think would help in this regard by moving these disappointing players to new situations, while bolstering their current squads, setting them up for better success. I'll go through each one, discussing why or why not the deal would be good for the teams involved, whether or not it's the kind of thing that would actually be beneficial in the first place, and whether or not it even makes sense in the grand scheme of things. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first hypothetical trade from the article that we'll be discussing is between the Dallas Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves, and in it, the Mavericks get Rudy Gobert in exchange for Tim Hardaway Jr., Davis Bertans, and 1 first-round pick. This isn't exactly groundbreaking information, but the decision to trade for Rudy Gobert by the Timberwolves looks worse and worse with each passing day. He's not nearly as good as they hoped he was, the team didn't even improve from a season ago, and they're paying him a monstrosity of a supermax contract on top of all of it. They're in a lose-lose situation at this point, where if they stick it out with him, they're severely limiting the upside of the team, but if they move on from him this fast for pennies on the dollar, then they are taking one of the hardest L's on a trade in NBA history. Keep in mind that they gave up not only a ton of players, but 4 first-round picks and a pick swap as well for him, so in this proposed trade, them getting 2 role players and 1 single pick back would be flat-out embarrassing for them. At the same time though, I can't really imagine any teams being over the moon to take on his contract at this point in time, so if they want to move him, they're not going to get very good value back in return for him. The Mavericks, on the other hand, are definitely one team that I think actually makes a lot of sense to try to bring in Gobert, and if the Wolves were interested in an offer of this caliber, the Mavericks would do it in a heartbeat. The Mavericks want to bring Kyrie Irving back this summer, but the team's biggest issue this year was the fact that their interior defense was non-existent. Rudy Gobert is a much better fit in Dallas than he is in Minnesota, because unlike in Minnesota, where he and Karl Anthony Towns have had to try to figure out how to play a weird Twin Towers lineup together, the Mavericks actually desperately need his services as a rim protector. Ultimately though, I don't think the Timberwolves would do this trade because the optics are just so terrible, and they can't possibly give up on their big trade after just 1 season. The next trade from the article that we'll be reviewing is between the Brooklyn Nets and the Portland Trail Blazers, and in it the Nets receive Damian Lillard and Jusuf Nurkic in exchange for Ben Simmons, Cam Thomas, Royce O'Neal, Patty Mills, Day'Ron Sharpe, and 3 first-round picks. Recently, for the first time maybe ever, we've begun to see some cracks in the armor regarding Damian Lillard's unwavering loyalty to the Trailblazers. He said in his exit interview that he's not there to rebuild, and that change needs to happen, but he also wants to win, and the reality is that the Blazers just are not in a position to create a legitimate contender in the near future. The Nets, meanwhile, just saw their super team fall apart earlier in the year, but as a result of it, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving may have left, but the Nets now have a deep squad filled with championship caliber role players and a player in Mikal Bridges who looks like a star in the making. All they're missing right now is a true number 1 option to lead them, and it's been floated out there by a few sources that they make a ton of sense as a potential Damian Lillard suitor. Cam Thomas needs to go to a team that will allow him to play freely in order to develop, because he has shown countless times that he can be a top scorer in the league if given the opportunity, and if the Blazers trade Damian Lillard away and rebuild, they are a perfect landing spot for him. Ben Simmons is also not in a place where he can be relied upon to contribute to a team with winning aspirations at this point in time, so the same kind of applies to him too. 3 first-round picks added to the deal makes this one the most appealing of the offers in this list for sure, and honestly, it might take a little bit more draft capital to get it done, but I actually do really like this one for both sides. The next proposal in the article is between the Indiana Pacers and the Atlanta Hawks, and it's a simple one-for-one swap where the teams trade John Collins for Buddy Hield. One-for-one trades are pretty rare in the NBA nowadays, because we always see GMs trying to bargain the most possible value out of the team that they're trading with, and little details always derail talks over things like second-round picks, and protections and fillers, but this one is just straight to the point, addressing each team's biggest needs, and I for one like it a lot. The Hawks sacrificed some of their best shooters in order to bring in DeJounte Murray last offseason, and unfortunately, that plan backfired, and as a result, they were one of the worst three-point shooting teams this year. Simultaneously, John Collins has been frustrated with the role that he's been forced into on the team for years now, and realistically, it would be beneficial for both he and the team if he were to be traded. Buddy Hield, meanwhile, really doesn't fit into the Pacers' rebuild timeline and has the skill set as a sharpshooter that could produce on a team for the playoffs, so if he were to go to the Hawks, who desperately need someone like him who can shoot threes and knock them down at a 43% clip, he would benefit greatly from the playmaking of Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. John Collins is also only 2 years older than Tyrese Haliburton, so the two of them could make for a strong two-man combo to build upon for years in Indiana as they progress through this rebuilding period. And finally, the last proposal in the article is between the Miami Heat and the Los Angeles Clippers, and in it, the Clippers receive Kyle Lowry in exchange for Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, and a second-round pick. There was a time where all three of these players were valuable pieces to title contenders, but nowadays, they all look to be on their last legs on their way out. Lowry was brought to Miami to help them get over the hump, but in his second season with the team, he's been looking flat-out washed, while also struggling to stay healthy. He hasn't even played more than 20 minutes in either of their playoff games so far, and even though Morris and Covington both have their best days behind them, I don't think Lowry even has enough value, especially with his contract, to warrant this kind of return package. The Heat would love a trade like this though, because their front court is literally non-existent outside of Bam Adebayo. The Clippers have been bringing in big-name point guards who are over the hill to desperately try to fill in their point guard hole, having gone from John Wall to Russell Westbrook, and we still have to wait and see how the Westbrook saga ends, but if it doesn't end well, then it would be the definition of insanity to try the same strategy a third time in a row by bringing in Lowry. I would assume that the Clippers would be the ones to deny this kind of a deal, but you never know, because ultimately, Covington's not even in the rotation for them anymore, and Morris has been detrimental down the stretch of the season, so neither side really benefits that greatly anyway. If anything, it favors the Heat slightly. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about these potential trades. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.